What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Sound Design channel. My name is La, and today we're going to look at this organic pluck, which is taken from the Organica 2-pack, which has just come out on Production Music Live. Let's have a listen to it. And in Kontakt. Alright, so everything else that you heard in this little project is also taken from the Organica 2-pack. So I will link that down below if you guys want to check that out. So let's first look at the MIDI and what's going on there. There's a little bit going on. So the actual MIDI itself is also taken from the Organica 2-pack. So there's some really great MIDI information to get you started with your songs. So what we have going on here is we are in the C minor scale, and we're just playing a bit of a kind of 8th dotted pattern, which sounds a bit like this. If I move this over, and this will be a typical 8th dotted pattern. If it continued on, obviously. So all that is just doing one note and then a gap of 2, doing one note, then a gap of 2. But instead what this is doing is we have this little gap here, which is just changing the rhythm a little bit, which is quite nice. Right, and what's going on with the kind of harmony is we're just playing the C, and then we're moving down to the B flat or A sharp here. And then the top note is playing, I believe, the 4th note in the scale, so the F. Then it goes up to the 5th, like the perfect 5th. And then on the second stage, it's doing pretty much the same thing, but instead of going to the 5th on the second part, we're moving down to this D here, which is just the 2 notes or 2 semitones above. So yeah, that's essentially what's going on with the MIDI. There's a little bit more that's going on, and it's just with the groove, and it's quite an important thing. So let me I need to move my face out of the way. Let's do this. So with the drums, I have a groove or a swing, which is being applied to all of the drums. And the swing is this MPC 3016. I think it's the 68 one. These MPC ones are really nice, but you can play around with whatever groove you want. It's important to do the 16th notes though, and then you can just play around with the quantize and random and timing and stuff like that, just to get you to the taste that you want. But what's important is that I put it onto the drums, and I also put it onto any other rhythmical elements in the track, or any other sounds in the track, and it's just going to help to make the sound on time. And I'll show you what this will sound like without this being applied to the synth. So the drums, just as they are, is with this groove. Right, and then the synth with it, it's all on time. But if I take it off this, so the groove will still be on the drums but not onto the synth, it'll sound like this. It just feels like it's out of time. It's just not very nice, so it's not helping you to groove. I'll put it back on so you can hear it. So yeah, very, very important that you do that. So yeah, let me just put my face back on. I'm sure you guys want to see my face. So let's have a look at the sound and see what's going on. It is actually a super simple sound, but I've added a bit of more interest to it and a bit more random to it, which you can do if you want. You don't have to. You can make it a little bit more consistent if you don't want the randomness. But yeah, let me just show you what I'm talking about. So we'll make this a bit bigger. Okay, so the preset is this one here. It's in the chords, and it's this Brook. And if I just reset it, actually, which might be a bit easier, yeah, we'll do that. So we'll just reset it, and I'll take off all the things that I've added. It'll sound like this. Right, so it's pretty much exactly the same, because the tone I haven't changed too much. I just added a bit of random to the sound to make it kind of open up in areas and a bit of noise coming in here and there. So that's what I'm going to show you in today's video. So the sound itself is just a sine wave. You can see here the mix is all the way over on this VCO2. which means that we're only listening to this sine wave, and it's just playing on this 8 here, so it's in the kind of upper octaves. We also do have the sawtooth and noise, which is on this side, but we're not listening to it just yet, and you won't be able to hear it if you don't do any changes onto this sound, which is what I'm going to show you. The other things that we got going on is a little bit of random with the pulse width. That just means that the shape of the waveforms that we're using, so the sine wave, you can see here it's on 1 and 2, so 1 and 2. So they're going to be moving a little bit randomly. So we have the random here, which is modifying it, and then the pulse width is just increasing a very small amount. If you do this too much, it's going to be quite drastic and it will sound a bit weird, but if you do it quite subtly, it sounds pretty nice. So the other thing is just a high pass filter, so it's just getting rid of a little bit of lows. Essentially what I'm doing here with this EQ, you can see at the bottom, so just getting rid of a bit of the lows. So then with the filter section, pretty simple. It's just a pluck shape. So if you want any kind of pluck, you generally want a low attack or very quick attack, medium decay, no sustain, and then a little bit of release so it doesn't just die off quite abruptly like this. So we want a bit of this. You hear that it doesn't just quickly die, it has a little bit of a tail to it. So the other thing that's going on, a little bit of modification, is just the velocity and key tracking on both these envelopes. So with the velocity, it means that if we have any changes to the velocity, it's going to modify the envelope 1 and 2, so it's going to modify how much that envelope is being applied, which is a nice way to add a little bit of life to your sound, especially if you do things with the velocity, which I'm going to show you in a second with this add some random. That's pretty much it. There isn't much else going on that's like doing too much to the sound. Just we have a bit of a modification on the cutoff filter to the mod wheel, but if you don't apply anything to the mod wheel, nothing will happen, but I'll show you if you do. So I'm just going to bring my mod wheel up, which is something that's attached to my keyboard. If you don't have a mod wheel, you can actually do it within the MIDI. So if you just go here and we click this and we click MIDI control, and then we find mod wheel, modulation wheel. I think you'll still have this option even if you don't have a keyboard, but don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I think you can. And then you can just draw automation in like this. Right? And that's how you can have some mod wheel modifications. So let's go back to the sound. And then the last thing to look at is just this reverb here. So it's just adding a bit of space. We have quite a big size and quite a big decay. I personally would bring this down a little bit and tame it a bit, especially if it's going to be a main thing in your track. You don't want it to be washed in reverb. So we'll bring the dry over a little bit and bring the decay down a bit as well. That way the size and the reverb behind it is just not, it's not carrying on over too much and not bleeding into each other. And that's pretty much it, right? So now let's add a little bit of movement and organicness to this sound.
Hi, this video is sponsored by us. If you like these tutorials and want to support the channel, check out our website packed with online courses and professional sample packs. Also check our ready-to-use and club-tested Diva presets. You can browse by the genre and style you're looking for, or get the incredible deal with the full Diva preset bundle. Thank you for listening, and now let's get back to your tutorial.
So what we can do, and I think the most drastic thing we can do, is adding, in the modifications tab here, we go to the noise oscillator and dual VCO mix. So what this means is you can add modifications to this, so this wheel here. You won't see it moving, which is kind of the annoying thing with Diva, but they're trying to keep it nice and analog, but you'll be able to hear it. So if we just go to random, and then we're going to bring this over a little bit. So this will randomly move this up and down. Not by much. If you bring it all the way over, it will randomly go from here to here. Like the ranges will differ, but it will go from here to here. We don't want that much. We want a little bit. So something like this. Bring this to here, and now we'll have a listen. So you hear those little noise stabs. It's like, I really like that. I like that little movement in the sound. It's nothing that's too drastic. And anytime you're adding randomness to a sound, you don't want it to be super drastic and changing the sound a lot, because it's going to be unpredictable. And every time that you render the track or whatever, it's going to be different each time, which is kind of a bit out of control. But you might want that. It's up to you. So yeah, we can have a bit of that, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, nice. And then the other thing is, instead of this mod wheel, you could actually add the random to that as well. So let's put that here, but bring it down quite a lot and put it like 4%. You see at the top, 4. Yeah, so that's going to opening the cutoff filter randomly, just like a little bit here, and closing it a little bit. And then we can also add it to the FM, which is just some filter modulation from oscillator 1. Essentially, it's just going to add a bit of noise here and there to the cutoff filter. So we can do that with random as well. I think you do it down here. So in the modifications tabs, go to filter FM mod, add some random to that as well. I think that sounds really nice, that little touch. The FM is a little bit kind of distorted, which is nice. Cool. So that's now adding a bit more interest, but I went a bit further with that. So in the MIDI, if we look here, so this is a velocity modifier from Ableton, and it's just a preset called add some random. So I added this on, and it's going to add randomness to the MIDI, because we are controlling or modifying the MIDI, the velocity within the synth. So we want the MIDI to actually be different. I think the original MIDI is not, it doesn't differ much. Yeah, the velocity is all exactly the same. So we can make it so that it will the Ableton will do that for us in a sense. So now you can hear there's like a lot more movement in the sound. And then I added an LFO tool here, well, not LFO tool, but an LFO modifier, which is from Ableton as well, or Max for Live. You just type LFO and you'll get it here. And the way that this is set up is you just attach it, so you map it. So if I take this off, we map it to something. And in this case, I mapped it to the decay, because I think that's quite a big part of what's shaping the sound, the decay. I'll just show you. Right, so it's quite nice to have this kind of moving. So sometimes it's very plucky, and sometimes it's more open. So if we do like, you leave it here where we want it to be, like 44, and then we mapped it, which is what I do here. So I'll click here, map. Now this is going between the range of 28 and 60. You could put it to 0 and 100, and it will do this, which is crazy. But if we just bring this down to like 60, and then we maybe go to like 35, something like that. Now it's very like a subtle thing. You just select random, which is one of the options for the movement, the type of movement. And then you can do it really quick if you want, like this. Which is almost just too quick, where you can't really tell the difference. But if you just do a little bit. Now the sound has this kind of organic feel to it. It's not always the same, which is nice, but you're still getting the main sound coming through. It's not too much random. And then if we go along, now with just a little bit of processing to make the sound feel a bit more condensed. So we got some glue compression. So then a little bit of saturation for some warmth here. Also slightly compressing the sound as well. And then I've got a utility which is just adding some width, a very small amount. So obviously that's too far, but a little bit of that just pushes it into the stereo field. And then we got a compressor here just to the kick. And that is it. That's pretty much the sound. So let's have a listen again in context. Cool, so I hope this was educational and helpful. If you want to hear or see how anything else in this video was made, then let us know in the comments and I'll try to cover it in the next one. Thank you very much for watching this one, guys. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.